Breaking Down the Law is sponsored by Battle Board Injury Lawyers.
And welcome back to our weekly segment, Breaking Down the Law, with our friend here, Matt Hoffmann. So we are going to dive into something that we've been talking about a lot as of late, right? Potential teacher strike, the teachers union saying they want some demands met, and where we are now in that process. So let's just kind of give people a recap of where we stand now. So Monday, we know that the school district filed an injunction essentially preventing this teacher strike from happening because it's illegal here in the state of Nevada. And you'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. And then also we know that they are currently in mediation. So still the Clark County Education Association, the union, is saying, hey, if we don't get to where we want to be, we're going to still walk away. And they have that strike plan for September 10th. And just to kind of give people an idea of how many teachers would be impacted by this, about 10% of teachers, give or take, are saying they are owed this reimbursement that they say was promised to them for 3 years for professional development. So that's kind of an overview of where we stand right now. So Matt, let's get into this. First of all, I guess a lot of people probably didn't even realize that strikes were illegal in the state of Nevada.
Right, and when you understand the purpose behind it, it makes more sense. So in Nevada, it's not specific to teachers. Any public employees, it's illegal to strike. So when you think about it, you know, we have a large metropolitan area, police, firemen, teachers. We have an interest in not having to shut the city down because they're striking. So that's the basis of the law. To prevent that from happening.
And so we have roughly, what, about 18,000 teachers? Not all of them are, you know, a part of the teachers union, but, you know, a sizable amount. So at this point in time, I guess, you know, like I said, the district filed the injunction, and then you have the teachers union saying that we're still in mediation. So I guess just legally, what are we looking at here in terms of the impact?
Well, what we're looking at is a mess, simplistically. But so under the law that forbids the strikes, it allows in this case, the school district to file for an injunction to prevent the strike. The teachers union has said, we don't care, we're still going to strike. The potential ramifications of that is that the union could be fined $50,000 per day when the teachers are on strike. That's number one. Number two, the school district now would have to hire substitute teachers, temporary people, to fill those positions, which is kind of puts everyone in a tough spot, because now the very money that would, you know, potentially go to pay for these promised raises is now being spent on substitute teachers because you're striking because you didn't get the raise. So that's kind of a quagmire. But the big issue here, where we're at now, is the teachers who went and got additional education, master's degrees, PhDs, whatever the case may be. And they only did it because they were told, if you get this additional education, you're going to go up a slot or a column in the pay scale to the tune of $5,000 a year.
So essentially, you're reimbursed for the investment that you put into this, and you kind of move up the pay scales.
And the teachers who had already done it last year got that money. So if I'm a teacher, I'm saying, okay, I will take on this burden, the time and the money. You know, some of these teachers had to get student loans for this. And you're talking $15,000, $20,000 in many cases spent to get the additional education. But you're doing it as an investment because you know you're going to get additional money for the next 10, 20 years. Then the budget gets approved by the legislature, the whole thing, 100% approved, only to then have the school district turn around and say, yeah, we didn't get enough to give you that extra slot raise we promised. I mean, putting aside unions and public employees, all this nonsense, if somebody came to me with that factual scenario, I'd say you have a case for breach of contract, possible fraudulent inducement, at least negligent misrepresentation. And you justifiably relied upon this representation and incurred this debt and this time, and you would have a viable lawsuit for not getting those funds.
That's interesting. Well, I know obviously the governor made the promise to teachers that he wanted to make sure, you know, they were compensated in the way that they should be, and he was kind of upset because he felt as if, you know, we didn't feel that they did provide the school district with what they asked for, and they weren't aware of the fact that, you know, that money, I guess, wasn't accounted for in that particular allotment.
Yeah, and I can't blame him or any legislators that would be upset. I mean, why didn't you tell us that your budget that you wanted us to approve wasn't enough? You know, why wasn't this information shared? And now we have this situation of a potential strike. You know, they're at a mediation. Obviously, the hope is it gets resolved. I guess keep in mind these are 2-year budgets.
Right.
So theoretically, maybe they say, okay, for this year, let's make it right.
Right.
And then perhaps the governor calls a special session for next year, but that can be very expensive.
Well, all sides have their perspective
Absolutely.
on how this should all, come together and what their perspective was. So obviously we hope what's best for the kids, ultimately, when it's all said and done, is at the forefront. So definitely a story that we'll continue to follow. Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you breaking down a lot.